Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to this episode of CultureCast. I'm Kevin.
I'm Steven.
I'm Katie. I'm Philippa.
Today we'll be talking about The Postman. The Postman is a fictional novel written in 1985 by Antonio Skarmeta. The Postman tells a story about a fictional postman who becomes friends with Pablo Neruda, a famous Chilean poet during the revolution in Chile. The novel has been made into theater productions, an opera, and 2 movies. One was directed by Antonio Skarmeta himself in 1983, while the other was produced in 1994 by Michael Radford in an Italian adaptation of the novel. The Postman is an intriguing novel combining both love and politics to illustrate the influence of language and political turmoil on the citizens of Chile.
Antonio Skarmeta was born in Antofagasta, Chile in 1940 and has led an impressive life working as a novelist, TV personality, ambassador, professor, and director. After studying philosophy and literature, Skarmeta received a master's in fine arts from Columbia University. When not writing books, Skarmeta made a Chilean TV show called El Show de los Libros and served as a Chilean ambassador to Germany. He moved from Chile to Germany after Pinochet's coup, but returned to Chile after the fall of Pinochet in 1989. He is best known for The Postman, The Dancer and the Thief, among many other impressive pieces of work. He has won a numerous amount of awards in Germany, Spain, France for his dedication to excellence in literature and film. Most recently, he has won the Latin American Spanish Language Literary Award, which includes a prize of $200,000, one of the richest literary prizes in the world. Skarmeta commonly writes themes emphasizing ordinary situations, working-class characters, the poetic influence in everyday life, and a focus on finding love and pleasure. He has a strong focus on dialogue and simplicity in his writing, which is strongly influenced by his time in Europe. The historical background. In the late 1960s, popularity of the Christian Democratic Party declined as the economy saw little improvement. The Popular Unity, also known as the Marxist Party, led by Salvador Allende, won the popular vote in 1970. The introduction of the communist government brought benefits at first, followed by increasing the workforce pay by 40 to 70%, but inflation brought economic distress in the coming years. The U.S. and copper mining companies opposed the democratic election of the communist president and sought to destroy the Chilean economy so Milton Friedman, a professor from the University of Chicago, could implement his capitalist free market economy. The country would face economic and political problems, including radical seizures of property, strikes, speculation, and an invisible blockade. On September 11, 1973, with the encouragement of the U.S. government, General Pinochet staged a successful military coup and seized power of the Chilean government using the Chilean military. General Pinochet served as a military dictator, and anyone with an affiliation to Allende, unions, or psychologists found themselves targets of the Chilean government. Citizens often went missing, were exiled, or left the country to escape persecution.
Characters. Pablo Neruda. Skarmeta's decision to include a non-fictional character added great depth in connecting the historical context to the story. Pablo Neruda was an important leader in Chile at the time and plays a very large role in the novel. Pablo Neruda gained his popularity with his 20 love poems and a song of despair at age 20. In 1927, he began his career as a diplomat in the tradition of honoring poets. Pablo Neruda joined the Communist Party in the 1940s and was later removed from his Senate seat once communism was declared illegal in Chile. He would go into hiding until 1952 when he returned to Chile and became known as the People's Poet. He would win the Stalin Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize for Literature, and served as the ambassador to France until he was diagnosed with cancer during his term. On September 23, 1973, Neruda died, being regarded as one of the greatest Latin American poets of all time. Here is a clip from The Poet's Calling on the death of Pablo Neruda.
In Chile, on September 11, 1973, Augusto Pinochet launched a military coup against the government of the democratically elected Marxist president, Salvador Allende. As I fled my country shortly afterwards, I could not take much with me. Some clothes, family pictures, a small bag with dirt from my garden, and an old edition of Pablo Neruda's poetry. Like the bag of earth, with Neruda's words, I was taking a part of Chile with me. For Neruda was such a part of my country, such a part of the political dreams destroyed that day. The poet died 2 weeks after the attack. Many say of a broken heart. At the poet's funeral, the left gathered for the first time to mourn their dead and to mourn the death of democracy.
It was as if the gods of poetry wanted to say to Pinochet, you know what, you're going to meet your match here. Neruda's going to die, and he's going to die in such a way that his words are going to haunt you. And he's going to allow the people to come together and gather courage.
In the story, Pablo Neruda seems to be a quiet old man who keeps to himself until Mario requests his help to find love. Mario Jimenez. Mario is a timid and lost young adult who makes friends with the town poet through delivering his mail. He uses the poet's poems and metaphors to win over Beatrice. He becomes a very loyal friend to the poet, and in the end he is taken away because of his affiliation to the poet, who is affiliated with Salvador Allende. Beatrice. An innocent barkeeper who falls in love with Mario and his poetry. She is a very naive 16-year-old girl that is watched over closely by her mother, Rosa, who owns the tavern where she works. In Spanish, Beatriz means to bring joy, which is true to her character as she brings humor and happiness into the story. Rosa. She is the protective mother of Beatrice, who is intelligent in the power of words and literature and the effect it can have on people. She seems to be underestimated many times despite her intelligence and knowledge. Plot. The story opens in June 1969 in the little village of Isla Negra off the coast of Chile during the rise and fall of Salvador Allende and the Communist Revolution in Chile. Mario Jimenez, a young adult, rejects the profession of his father, a fisherman, and instead takes a job as a local postman. Despite the entire village being illiterate, he does have one local to deliver to, the poet, Pablo Neruda, who is living in exile. Mario worships Neruda as a hero and buys a volume of his poetry and seeks to have it autographed, which leads to the beginning of their relationship. The book follows the relationship of this unlikely friendship between the postman and an exiled poet, where they bond over their love for poetry and metaphors. The story gains momentum as the postman, Mario, falls in love with Beatrice, the beautiful young barkeeper. The postman wins over the young bartender with the help of his mentor, Pablo Neruda, despite Rosa's dismay for Mario, who uses Neruda's poetry to win her over. The two have intercourse, which is told through the sensual exchange of an egg between the two, and later discover Beatrice is pregnant. The two are married, and Mario begins to work for Rosa as Neruda becomes an ambassador in France. Mario maintains a relationship with him through a package that Neruda sends with a cassette tape to record with the sounds of the homeland. Mario even saves enough money to visit Neruda in France, but when his son is born, the money is needed to care for him. Neruda, while away, wins the Nobel Prize, and Mario celebrates by throwing a party at Rosa's restaurant. Neruda later returns to Chile ill as the revolution is ending and passes away in a hospital after Mario reads his telegrams offering sanctuary. Shortly after, Mario is asked to come in for routine questioning. He gets into a black car with no license plates. As the car pulls away, Mario hears that soldiers have occupied a publishing house where he sent his poem in for a poetry contest in the magazine called La Quinta Ruda.
Parallelism in the Postman. The plot of the story becomes very important as it is intertwined with the historical events of the time. The story begins as a love story, but is quickly paralleled with the political aspects. The historical events supplement in understanding the development and dialogues of the main characters in the novel. One of the earlier parallels we see is right when Neruda is announced as a presidential candidate, Mario recites his metaphors to Beatrice for the first time. The victory of Allende is the next event, which coincides with Mario and Beatrice's first consummation of their love. Neruda's Nobel Prize again acts as a parallel with their second sexual climax described in the book. The story progresses with Pablo Neruda's declining health and his son's long list of ailments continuing on to Neruda's death. Immediately following Neruda's death, Mario is taken in a black car, which we know in the circumstances of the political state of Chile will result in his death as well. Chilean history is very important not only to the content of the novel, but it's important to the storyline in distinguishing the most important events in the characters' lives. The parallelism allows the reader to understand the lives of Chilean citizens during this time of political unrest. Themes in The Postman. The first theme is the power of language and poetry. Poetry used throughout the book to motivate human behavior. Mario is motivated by his love of Neruda's poetry and uses it to motivate him to perform his job. Mario uses his poetry to impress Beatrice, and it is the stepping stone of building the relationship using the power of language and poetry. The power of friendship. The strong relationship between Pablo and Mario, despite their different backgrounds, is united through poetry and beautiful words. We see this friendship develop into a father-son relationship with Mario's devotion to Neruda, which is clearly illustrated when Pablo is named the godfather of Mario's son. It begins as a simple one-way relationship and builds into a strong bond, creating a mutual need for each other. A great example of this power is presented at the end of the book when Neruda returns to Chile ill and bedridden. Mario, determined to check on Neruda and deliver his mail at a time of extreme danger due to political unrest. On page 96, Mario tells the telegraph operator he's going to get the mail, to which the operator responds, "Do you want to commit suicide?" Mario travels to Neruda's home, avoiding barricades and military convoys to be with his best friend.
Symbols and motifs. Mail. Mail has always been used for correspondence, and in the novel, mail is the segue for communication between Pablo and Mario. They created a real-life relationship and dialogue, all from a bag of letters. The sea and waves. The waves are a constant symbol for the rhythm and beauty of poetry, which is discussed in the beginning of the book when Pablo describes poetry to Mario for the first time. The waves continue to reappear throughout the novel and are a constant reminder of the impact that poetry has on the book. Poetry. Throughout the novel, we see language as a strong influence on people in the novel. Not just the main characters, but the whole country is influenced by Neruda's poetry. At the end of the novel, when the publishing factories are seized, including the one he submitted his poems to, you see that his ability to influence others and the country are taken away. Metaphors. Metaphors are one of the most important parts of Neruda and Mario's poetry. It is a reoccurring feature in Mario's strategy to impress Beatrice, and she is definitely wooed by his metaphors. For example, she says, "He said that my smile stretches across my face like a butterfly." The egg. During an intimate scene between Mario and Beatrice, an egg is used as a symbol for the virginity and fertility of Beatrice. The egg is used as a tool to create sexual foreplay in the novel, and is passed gently between the two until the sexual tension builds up to the point that the egg drops and breaks. The egg breaking is a symbol of her virginity being taken and her fertility as her child was conceived. Love. He uses poetry to express his love to Beatrice and their relationship that develops throughout the book. He also uses poetry to describe his love of nature. This is seen from the tape recording of the sounds of the island, the ocean.
The Postman uses historical parallelism, poetry, and meaningful relationships to illustrate the effect of Chilean politics on the citizens of Chile at the time. The book allowed Skarmeta to share his political views in a creative and entertaining way.
Thank you for joining us for this presentation of CultureCast. We hope you enjoyed our presentation on The Postman by Antonio Skarmeta. Feel free to comment and subscribe.